details of the attack. Given your law enforcement experience, how do you view that?
Well, I think that the reality is there is a gap that exists here, whether it's law enforcement or intelligence, and that gap, unfortunately, sits right between both, where one ends and the other one begins. And the reality is that, as we saw with San Bernardino, as we saw with Miami, as I suspect we'll see in the UK, in many cases, these are people who have not committed a crime until they actually commit this horrible attack, and that means that law enforcement in many cases doesn't have the legal authority to effect an arrest. On the intelligence side, we're looking over the horizon. The intelligence community, as we've seen with unmasking, they can't necessarily just take signals intelligence and effect an arrest either. The people that you rely on this, Ari, are the community. And when you start going after pushing a Muslim ban in the middle of this, you alienate that community. That's the best line of defense for someone to pick up the phone and call law enforcement and say, my brother, my father, my sister, my wife, is someone you should check out. And when you start taking this rhetoric, you alienate that best line of defense. And it is, for a president, it is absolutely nothing short of missing completely the mark of what the intelligence community and the law enforcement needs to battle these terrorists.
Right. And so, David, we've covered